Welcome to the fourth and final part of the Pension Corporation Trustee Chairman Roundtable. Our Trustee Chairman is due to meet the Prime Minister and wants to push pension-related issues and to suggest some items the Prime Minister might consider. He's asked our panellists for their help. Raj, what would you advise him?
Can I take a slightly different tack, because I'm sure the others will have good ideas on specific issues. If you think back to how pensions change and pension reform used to be handled, say 15 years ago, the industry used to complain about a planning blight. And that's because you'd have major consultations come out, long run-up periods and long consultation periods, and then potentially a long time until the detail was actually out before the industry knew what they were meant to be doing. And that's what they used to complain of. Now we have the opposite problem. We have planning overload. There is just a relentless pace of change, very short consultations, very short notice to having to make change, and companies and trustees are just overloaded. So I think if there's one theme that the chairman, if he does have the ear of the Prime Minister, should get across, is just to really focus the government's attention on what's really important, what's not just what's the hobby horse of the particular politician or minister across a number of fronts in government that happens to be at the table or in power at the time, but focus everybody's minds, reduce the burden of unnecessary change on the industry, and allow companies and trustees to get back to their primary purpose.
So do less. Dawid, would you agree?
I do agree. I think if the chairman of trustees had 30 seconds with the Prime Minister, I mean, my view is that this is the point he ought to be making, or she ought to be making. Think about where we are in the pensions situation at the moment. This is a crisis. This is an unprecedented crisis in many ways. To my mind, this is one of the global challenges that we face. If you think back to March, just last month, completely unexpected cold snap, and as I understand it, 5,000 elderly people succumbed because they didn't have enough resources to keep themselves warm. And this is a serious situation. People just do not have enough resources, inadequate resources, if you like, in retirement. And if we don't deal with that now, then over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, this is going to play out big time. We're going to find ourselves in real trouble. So one of the suggestions I think that our chairman might like to make is that the Prime Minister thinks about a savings czar. I think the word pensions isn't really helpful. But think about young people. Think about my son, who's 21, has no real idea how to go about saving, doesn't really, and not just, his entire generation, if you were to say, if you wanted to save, how do you go about doing it? They don't really know how to do that. But for the first time in history, you can reach all young people. They're all in one place. It's called Facebook, or they're online. They all think the same way, in terms of what they're very savvy, they're very tech savvy. You can now get to the world's young people, and certainly the young people of the United Kingdom, and you can talk to them and you can deal with them. And I think a savings czar who is savvy and who understands technology and who understands the industry and who understands the big issues that we're dealing with might be something very interesting. Someone who can work outside the bureaucracy of the executive, if you like. I think the DWP does amazing work, but I just think if you had a savings czar, it's very well understood. Some of the Americans do a lot. I think it wouldn't be a bad thing, with the aim of promoting education amongst young people, really using technology and really using a lot of the resources that we now have, which frankly we've never had before, to get people, not just very young people, but just across the different generations, to start thinking about how to save, asking whether or not they've got the right options, and whether frankly they're being charged too much. There's a whole bunch of questions that I think someone like that could get to grips with.
David, savings czar, would you agree?
Absolutely. I think that, if you like, the real pensions crisis is not whether the defined benefit pension funds are 70, 80 or 90% funded. Whichever is the number, the people in those funds are still far, far better off than the people in defined contribution plans, or the, whatever it is, 50% of people that just don't have a pension fund at all. So for the government to plan for the long-term future, it should be focusing on the long-term savings issue, and not just thinking about monetary savings. Why are pensions costing so much more? People are living a lot longer. They're living a lot longer because they're healthier. If they're healthier, they can work and generate income for a lot longer. They can go way past 65 and still generate income. So focusing on how can we mobilise, if you like, people in their third age, to carry on in economic activity. It may be less essential to make a certain amount of money doing so, but for every person that engages well into their retirement in economic activity that earns even a basic level of income, that basic level of income will be significantly more than what they could generally anticipate saving for through normal pension vehicles. So I think that's a key area. The other, I think, with regard to defined benefit pensions, there's a whole areas of uncertainty, very tactical issues that just need to be cleared up, whether that's GMPs, whether that's the pension fund status as a super creditor in insolvency. A lot of loose ends. Loose ends create uncertainty. Uncertainty means things just don't get done. So the less uncertainty you can have, the better.
Thank you. I'm afraid we've reached the end of this debate. All that remains for me to do is thank our panellists, Raj, Dawid and David, for their time, and to thank you, our viewers, for watching. Thank you.